Hey guys, hope you're well. Just got in off a flight and I decided to make a video right away because I sat next to this poor guy who had this condition called restless leg syndrome. Now, if you suffer with restless leg syndrome, or if you know somebody who has this condition or leg pain, you absolutely need to see this video, because I was not only able to help this poor guy in the short term to make him comfortable, I was able to give him some long-term advice, and I'm going to share this same advice, and I'm going to give it to you, and I've been giving it successfully to my patients for the last 3 decades. Okay, so on with the video. So what is restless leg syndrome? It's also known as Willis-Ekman disease, and it's characterized by unpleasant or uncomfortable feelings in the leg with the urge to move. Now, if we look at men and women, the scales tilt a little bit more towards women, but the one thing is for sure, 80% of people who have restless leg syndrome, they get this kind of twitching or jerking motion, which occurs every 15 to 40 seconds. So needless to say, sleeping can get interrupted by this. Generally, it's characterized also that it's generally relieved in the morning, but as the day goes on, things tend to get worse. Okay, so by the time you get home from work and you sit down and turn the TV, that's when things start kicking in. But it also can happen in a sedentary position, sitting for long periods at work, going to the movies, or like the poor guy sitting next to me today in the airplane seat. It can, with a long flight, that's when it can also kick in. So what are the signs and symptoms of restless leg syndrome? Like I said before, the one thing is they have this incredible urge to keep moving. The sensations are kind of nebulous and very difficult to describe, but they can be described as like aching or throbbing, pulling, itching, creeping, crawling. And the main thing is you'll see them, they always have to keep moving. They're the guys sitting next to you who tapping their legs, the person who keeps flipping in bed, but they're the person who has to always keep pacing the floor. And the classic feature with restless leg syndrome is that it's always worse at night, and they always have a short, distinct, symptom-free period in the morning. So what causes restless leg syndrome? In most cases, the etiology is unknown. Translation, they don't know what the hell causes it. I have some theories. I don't know if I'm going to go through them on this video or not, but some say there might be a genetic. We always try to blame the genes. Some scientists say it might be an iron deficiency. Some people think it's the basal ganglia, the part of the brain controlled for movement, which makes a chemical called dopamine, which is seen in Parkinson's. It's seen in patients who take drugs. For example, people who take like antihistamines or antipsychotic drugs or antidepressant drugs. It's also seen in the last trimester of pregnancy, but generally that goes away after the baby or the child's delivered. So how is restless leg syndrome diagnosed? Well, the bad news is there is no specific test for the diagnosis of restless leg syndrome. It comes from a subjective finding, period. But there are 5 criteria that your doctor or practitioner must have from you to give you this diagnosis, and I'm going to go through those 5 right now. Drum roll, please. No, that's terrible. This is not funny. This is a terrible, terrible situation here for people who have this. Number 1 is a strong and often overwhelming need or urge to move the legs that is often associated with abnormal, unpleasant, or uncomfortable sensations. Number 2, the urge to move the legs starts or gets worse during rest or inactivity. Number 3, the urge to move the legs is at least temporarily or partially or totally relieved by movements. Number 4, the urge to move the legs starts or is aggravated in the evening or at nighttime. And number 5, the above 4 are not due to any other medical or behavioral condition. Okay, so how do we treat this? We're going to start with the classic or the conventional way. And conventionally, restless leg syndrome is treated with drugs. And a number of medications used to treat this disorder include central nervous system depressants, opioids, and anticonvulsants. The big thing is, the big gangbuster right now is moving on towards drugs that increase the dopamine transmission to the central nervous system. As like I said earlier, we're seen in like Parkinson's treatment. A new thing that's trending right now is anti-seizure drugs, which are now becoming more the front line. Okay, there you have it. But here's the thing, what if you don't want to go down that road? What if you want to go non-drug? Well, good news is, now we're getting into my arena. This is the stuff that I want to talk about. Here we go. So let's look at diet. And diet's important because your diet can either promote, enhance, or reduce the inflammatory response in your body. And so you want to be careful not to trigger these responses. And there are certain groups that actually do this, and you want to try to avoid these things. The big one would be sugar, and sugar is, especially processed sugar, is just absolutely terrible if you have any inflammation problem like restless leg syndrome. Another thing would be synthetically produced trans fats, processed meats, processed carbohydrates, processed vegetable oils, especially high in oxidized omega-6 fats. Now, paradoxically, marine-based omega-3 fats are actually good, and they actually reduce the inflammatory response. And there's been a big study last year published that shows that ketogenic diets, which are high in healthy fats and low in net carbs, are particularly powerful for suppressing inflammation. In other words, when you suppress inflammation, you reduce your pain. So we're going to move on to supplements. And supplements, a lot of people want to know what can they take if you want to go down this road. As I talked about earlier, according to the science, there are some suggestions that there might be an iron deficiency. So if you want to take iron supplementation, if you're a male, you want to take 8 milligrams a day. Women, 18 milligrams a day. But this is the recommended minimum allowance. Magnesium, your body, according to the scientists, doesn't produce it itself, so you have to take this either through foods or through supplementation. But my favorite would be magnesium spray. And so you can actually topically spray magnesium right on the sore areas and just rub it into the muscles in a circular motion. And then lastly, there's folate and folate deficiency. And there's a lot of research that's kind of trending right now is folate, which is also B9. And I've known people who've taken B9 and they said it completely got rid of their restless leg syndrome. Sitting. When you have a condition like restless leg syndrome, you have to sit right. I don't care. You have to sit right. And I've never seen anybody who has this condition know how to sit right. So the key thing here is, and I'm not going to get into a big dissertation on how to sit. I've done this before many, many times. You can click on the link down below. What I did for this fellow to sit next to me today was I put him on a thing called a foundation. And this is a device that I made which engages the core muscles, and it gets the hips above the knees. So when you're sitting, you always want to make sure your hips are above your knees to engage the core muscles and take the load off of your spinal nerves. Okay, you may or may not have heard all the stuff that I've just talked about, but let's go into stuff I bet you've never heard of. And we're going to go a little bit more esoteric, and then we're going to go really esoteric here. But how about a gin and tonic? No, seriously. Well, maybe without the gin. Tonic water has a substance called quinine, and quinine now has been linked to relieving restless leg syndrome. It's crazy. So, have a midday tonic water. Give it a try. You have nothing to lose. I've known a lot of people who've done this, and they absolutely love by this, and they stand by this. So quinine. Here's a treatment that I absolutely love. In fact, there was a study done just recently that found in a randomized controlled trial that 1/3 of the patients suffering with restless leg syndrome, their symptoms completely went away. And so what they did was they applied a mechanical compression device to the legs, and what it does, the whole mechanism was to pump or promote a negative vacuum to promote circulation of the blood and the lymphatics. Now, if we dig a little deeper here, this treatment has been used by the ancients, and it was found that compression is thought to be a way to reintroduce the biological vacuum. So if you look at the body, every single cell in your body is in a slight vacuum. You're in a negative pressure. Your body's in a vacuum. Every single cell, the fluid in the cell, they call the interstitial fluid, is in a slight negative pressure. And so by causing compression, introducing compression, you're squeezing the blood, you're squeezing the lymphatics, and you're creating this biological vacuum. Now, there's all sorts of ways you can do this. One way would be, really low tech, would be just using wraps, as shown here below. Or you can go really high tech, and there's all kinds of different types of things. Like if you look at a lot of pro athletes now are getting on board with this, and they're using these things called compression boots. So you want to emulate the natural flow of the lymphatic system. So you want to start at your toes and move towards your hips. And it's usually done in a peristaltic contraction kind of way. Okay? Start with a few minutes of compression and a few minutes without. And over the course of the next 10 days, work up to 15 minutes on and 15 minutes off for, let's say, an hour. Okay? And the benefits, here are the benefits. It improves blood flow. It supplies oxygen to the muscles. It decreases tiredness. It improves mobility, creates more energy, and I love the results of this therapy, and I'm sure you will too. And the last one, here we're going to get really way out there. This is actually an old Irish remedy. from Mayo. It comes from the west of Ireland, and it's been around for a long time. It's kind of out there, but give it a go, okay? You might even have the cure yourself in your house. And what they call it the cure is a bar of soap. Now what they suggest is you put a bar of soap and you tuck it between your sheets in your bed, and you sleep with a bar of soap in the bed. I'm not kidding you. The amount of people that I've told this to, and they came back and said, thank you. That's so crazy. I don't know how it works. Who cares? It works. It works for a lot of people. And they've been doing this forever. I had one person come back to me and said, the bar of soap used to work, doesn't work anymore. And I said, well, why don't you just try buying a new bar of soap? And so they went out and they bought, I think, like Dove or it doesn't matter what kind of bar, any kind of bar. Tucked in the sheet. Yep, that did the trick. So, bar of soap. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for taking this little detour at my office with me. I had to get this off my chest. I hope you enjoy your evening. And hey, listen, I hope you have a happy Christmas, or as the Americans say, Merry Christmas. And we'll talk to you real soon. And don't forget to like and subscribe, or else you get the wrath. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.